recess. It is 1:30 on February 3rd, 2026, and we're in the BCC conference room. We're going to start off with a report on the Land Stabilization Center, quarterly progress report. I'll hand it over to Eve Gray. Does that work, Mr. Mokraski?
Yeah. So we are going to be coming quarterly to give you all updates on this project. This is the first of our, what will become a regularly scheduled cadence, just so that you all can keep on top of all the work that's happening, the different work streams, the risks that we're identifying and how we're mitigating those, and can feel well informed. So I will turn it over to Brittany DeLiso, our project manager, who will begin, and then she and I will tag team a little bit for what shouldn't be a too lengthy presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Eve. So for the sake of the public, and because it's been a minute since we've come to chat with you all, just wanted to give you an overview of where we've been, what we've been up to with this project, and get re-grounded in the intent and goals of why we're all here talking about it. So as a reminder, this was a need identified back in 2014 with dedicated staff in the form of myself coming on around 2022 after some refreshed efforts in 2020. The plan is to construct a 35 to 40,000 square foot facility within a general range, offering 24/7 access to behavioral health services for all ages, really intending to serve as the alternative to the emergency room and carceral settings that are currently kind of the go-to place for individuals navigating behavioral health crises. As I said, intending to serve all ages, both youth and adults, on a voluntary and an involuntary basis as needed to support someone in the midst of their crisis, with 3 levels of care: a mental health urgent care setting, very comparable to physical health, a 23-hour and 59-minute unit, where folks have really intensive wraparound support from a whole team, and then ongoing care in a bedded unit for multiple days for those that have more nuanced discharge planning needs or need a bit longer to stabilize. And sitting here today at this point, we've secured about $35 million for the capital funding through state and federal and local dollars, bringing together to support this effort. Hopefully that is a high-level refresher that you all are aware of, but wanted to get grounded in our why this happened. To you.
Okay. We have a lot of things going on all at once in this project, and though, you know, in the ideal world, some of them might have happened sequentially, we are on the cutting edge. This is the first of its kind facility that will be opened in our state, and so we are having to do a lot to trailblaze within this project. So the property itself, you all are aware that we completed our purchase of the property. We are actively in the annexation process. We submitted our application to the City of Springfield to annex the property. We anticipate that there will be a hearing sometime end of February to early March timeframe. I don't think that we have a date yet. At least it has not come as an invitation on my calendar that I've seen. But we are doing lots of work to prepare for that, make sure that we can answer the questions that we anticipate the city may have. There will be an opportunity for us to present. And I think that between Peace Health and our efforts, we've gained 30 to 40 logos from organizations who will have a nice big poster board to really demonstrate the community interest and support for this project. There will be an opportunity for testimony at that meeting as well for the public. And then the city will continue through their process of making an annexation decision. So at this point, I would say we're on track. Everything is happening so far as expected. The design process, you all also approved a contract with TVA Architecture to, and you approved the entire design contract all the way through construction. But we are going to take this in pieces, and we do have outs within the contract if something were to happen or if changes were to happen. But the cost estimate is the next step. So we're working on getting a really solid finger in the wind is what that first cost estimate is. Because there's a lot more detail that you have to put in when you're creating the detailed design and architectural plans. But essentially at this point, we have some basic schematics of the facility, we have the information about the site, and the architects are gonna put a better number on what is the cost to prep this site and build the facility that we hope for. And then there will be opportunity over time for us to make adjustments as needed in order to assure that we have the budget to cover the cost for building the project. From a regulatory standpoint, there are a number of pathways that we need to walk down, and I think where we are now in our partnership with OHA, what's great is that at this point the top leadership in OHA is coming to us saying, we understand the need for this facility. We understand it. We understand that we need to identify a pathway forward, and it's complicated because, in case any of you didn't know, we have a lot of rules and statutes in Oregon, especially as it relates to behavioral health and healthcare facilities. So there's a lot that has to be worked out kind of with each piece of our project to figure out, okay, how do we carve this out into the rules? Where does it get carved out? What else do we need to think about, in the 15 other rule sets that may be impacted by a rule set that we're working in? So it's more complicated than the layperson would imagine it to be. But we do know that we have really strong partnership with the OHA at this point to try to figure out the challenges. So we're taking the project in pieces. First step is to get the 23-hour rules. That is the part that I think is just most clear to everybody about how we get from here to there. And then we'll start to take the other facility types that still need to be built under the stabilization center rules that are longer than 23 hours or that provide care for youth. So essentially right now, we are working through the messy middle with the Oregon Health Authority. If at any point we get to a place where we go, oh boy, we've hit a barrier and that might impact our programming that we can offer within the Stabilization Center, we will come back to you. At this point, I feel like we are just continuing to work through it, and I'm optimistic that we'll get to a conclusion. What is important and what we all have shared understanding and commitment to is that all parts of this programming in the facility will need to be licensed under the Stabilization Center statute, which is a requirement of our ability to build on this property. So that part is critical.
Yeah. So I'll take the next three. So we are working on 6 parallel work streams at the same time. Just want to point that out. But we do have some milestones related to each one. So the conversation around ongoing sustainability and operations, we do have a monthly meeting happening with multiple other counties established through the AOCMHP, which I have my little acronym guide on the bottom of the page, Association of Oregon Community Mental Health Programs. So bringing together other counties that already have stabilization center established or in process of establishing one, and all of us are concerned about ongoing sustainability. And out of that group is the plan and intention to bring forth recommendations to OHA and to the Medicaid department, specifically around what works for what we're doing. Additionally, what we have uniquely in Lane County is our partnership with Connections, and they have assigned their National VP of Payer Contracting to really dig into what's possible in Oregon. Another advantage is that because we're working with Trillium here in Lane County, in partnership with Centene and Connections having programs in other places throughout the country, they have a pre-existing relationship already with Centene. So there's some momentum to build off of and understand how that fits within the Oregon context. So meaningful progress happening there with our partners at Connections and the other counties. Around workforce development has been one of the concerns from day one. We've been given a really lengthy on-ramp to figure out workforce as we've had a lengthy process here with the project overall, so we've taken advantage of that. One of the cooler things that's happened out of a couple of work sessions that we've had, where we've had upwards of 40 people coming together, including First Lady Kotek to our last event. Some ideas generated there really relate to the curriculum and content and what's taught in some of our local mental health programs within our local colleges and universities, recognizing the gap around how students come out equipped to support folks with high acuity behavioral health needs and crisis needs. Being an alum of a local program myself, I can attest to that. There's a need for that specific type of education. So we have a really robust conversation happening with Bushnell, Lane Community College, University of Oregon, and Western University of Health Sciences up in Lebanon, to get creative around some sort of certificate perhaps that involves courses from all of the colleges and universities formed together, speaking to each of their expertise that they can add to this content. And the certificate would be informed by local behavioral health providers and individuals receiving services to make sure it hits the mark, and would ideally feed into some of the other degree programs that exist within those schools. And that workforce conversation is also enhanced by Lane Workforce Partnerships and Lane ESD to think about the full continuum from high school all the way through a graduate program to hopefully be equipping our workforce with the right skills for this facility. And that's really done in close partnership with Peace Health as well, who is equally interested in having a more robust workforce in this area. And then lastly, my personal favorite part of this work related to our community engagement. Something I'm proud of that we have stood up in the last couple of months is our Art and Culture Council. This is in response to a community survey that we ran a couple of years ago, where our community members said we want there to be an established group that has a conversation around how this facility can meaningfully reflect our local community through the art on the walls, how it's designed aesthetically and also functionally, and what's significant to our local culture here in Lane County. So we have a stellar group of volunteers, including tribal members, people with lived experience, people representing youth, designers themselves, who are speaking to the overall kind of artistic vision for the facility and working really in close step with Kathy and I to relay that back to our architects, and also helping to construct ongoing events to solicit input from communities that we often don't get to hear from around how this facility can be truly accessible to them in the future. So that work is going, and then also with our design ramping up, we get to have some focus groups and opportunity for folks to give input on the more tangible pieces of work, like the design. And here's our last slide. I'm not sure, I'll try to spell that out if y'all can't read the small print from here. It was time to create an updated timeline. You all have seen many renditions of a timeline for this project over the last few years. Most of what's up here is what Eve and I have just spoken to, just putting it more on a visual with some parameters around that. So I have it broken down by the property and design kind of bucket of work, program operations development, and then that community engagement and workforce. So you can see the bulk of the work that we're in the middle of right now and anticipated through the end of 2026, and then construction moving into 2027. And then with just that note that we plan to return quarterly to update you along this timeline, as Eve had mentioned.
And I believe these quarters are calendar year quarters, not fiscal year quarters.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have even thought of that. Yes, that's how my brain works. Yeah, great. Yeah, and then last slide is just our QR code for the website, so I can leave it up on the timeline if that's helpful, but I think we're good.
Okay. Well, excellent news. Things are moving forward. Once again, this is a report, quarterly progress report. Do we have any questions? Board? Mr. Trigger?
Thank you.
Maybe?
I'm just curious about the interplay with Peace Health and their process, and maybe it's at a future quarterly they're going to come back and talk to us about that, because I know they're in a similar but different with the order of operations around the regulatory environment and licensure, and they're on a very specific prescribed timeline. So I'm not sure if that's a question for today or just a pin in it question for a future, whether it's the next or the following report. that we also hear from our partners at Peace Health because the projects are so interconnected.
Yes, would be happy to have them come to the next one. And they are moving theirs forward with the certificate of need application being submitted. We are working with them on an MOU that will describe our agreements related to shared costs on the property. So there are some infrastructure pieces like roads and wastewater where we will be able to share the cost of prepping the property for construction. So that part is underway, and they are intimately involved in many of the conversations about the work streams. You know, it is essential for them that we get the regulatory pieces worked out, not just from a patient care standpoint, but unless they have a stabilization center co-located on the site, licensed as a stabilization center, they can't build. So we're making sure that we're in very close communication with all of the work streams. They are deeply involved in the annexation process because, of course, that is essential for their work and their facility, as well as, I would say, payment a little less but there are some adjustments that we could ask of the state together, particularly around the IMD exclusion rule, and asking for an 1115 waiver related to that, which would help both our facility as well as the Peace Health Hospital facility. We haven't come to a conclusion on whether we're going to ask the OHA for that, but that is one of the things that we're talking about as a potential pathway to make the both organizations' operations more sustainable. And of course, workforce. As Brittany mentioned, we are very closely aligned on the need to build a skilled and talented workforce to be able to staff these facilities. You know, we're gonna have to try to hire like 300 plus people overnight between our two facilities. So that's an important work stream.
Commissioner Farr.
Oh, that was quick. Thank you. A couple of things, Director. And first, you, Brittany, you talked about the 4 universities that are combining to help develop that workforce for the future. Not immediately, or can we anticipate some feed from them early on, or is that more for future?
I mean, each of those universities, other than Western, has existing behavioral health programs that puts out the different qualified mental health associate, qualified mental health professional positions currently. And so they're now fully apprised of this upcoming need and what that means for their current students.
Excellent. I think that's a wonderful sign because there's no vestige of that existing currently. And so for everybody, that's a step in the right direction. That's one additional benefit of our moving forward with this particular project, is it's bringing more opportunities into the community for greater service for future generations. My second point, Eve, was something that you made this morning that I really want to emphasize. And your quote is, I'll get it exactly here, "We are not putting all of our eggs in one basket." Remember saying that? And we're talking about the stabilization center as being a part of our overall presentation regarding behavioral health issues. And this is a critical element. It's not the only element by any stretch of the imagination, but it catches people at a very critical time. And we're still convincing people throughout the community that this is necessary and that we need to move forward with it. I think as people hear about it, it becomes not an issue. People do understand. But it's not. This is not the be-all, the end-all, the panacea. This is a critical cog in the link. It frees up the emergency room back rooms and the horrible experience patients have sitting in those rooms for as long as they sit. The sooner we get this in operation, the sooner we get people out of those back rooms, and the sooner we get people into immediate care that is not happening today. So that's just kind of a statement based upon what you said this morning, just reminding everybody out loud that this is just one part of our presentation in terms of both physical and behavioral health and the integrated approach that we happen to have, as Dr. Lippy so nicely pointed out this morning. My second question was regarding connections in Kirkland. It's a bit different, isn't it, that facility? But is that someplace that you'd encourage people to visit if they have an opportunity to see how Kirkland works?
So folks certainly would be welcome if they're up there to drive around the facility and see that it is in a business park.
Which is no small part of it, is how does it fit in with the neighborhood?
Yes. It does have schools nearby. It has, it's right in the middle of things. Same thing with the Tucson facilities. I know that Connections has really dramatically reduced their openness to having people come and tour their facilities, and that is out of honor and respect for the people receiving care there and their confidentiality and the need to maintain a therapeutic environment. So that we know that Connections is open to touring a small amount of interested folks within our community if that becomes an opportunity. At this point, we haven't identified the right group to go up there. You know, we tried to get some of the neighbors to go, as you're aware, and they did not take us up on that offer for the opportunity.
And that makes great deal of sense. I've been in Pima County myself and seen a kind of a different sort of operation. One thing about Connections, if people look it up online, they do take walk-in, and walk-in's not something that we're going to be, or are we taking walk-in? We will take walk-in.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
It'll be a really similar presentation then to the one that we would see in Kirkland.
Yes, I don't believe they do youth up in Kirkland.
Right, yeah.
So that would be the addition for us, would be the additional age ranges. But in terms of the rest of the function of the facility and how people enter and exit, that they'll have the urgent care walk-in site where someone can be triaged and moved to the back if they need to be, or treated in urgent care. And then they have the drop-off for law enforcement and first responders that is separate from that directly into a secure area of the facility. So in terms of how patients kind of come and go, that would be very similar. For us, it's just we would do that times 2 because we would have the second entrance for youth.
You know, if I were in the community and just hearing little bits about this, I'd build in my mind what it looks like. So I'm trying to encourage people to get a clear picture of what it will look like and how it will fit into the community surrounding it. And I think that, once again, it's important to understand that this is not their first time. They have done it, and it does integrate well inside of a mixed-use neighborhood. The other question on that is, not a question, but we have what I always feel is a kind of an arm-in-arm relationship with Peace Health on this. That is, in fact, it's more than that. It's hugs around the neck relationship. Does Kirkland have a similar relationship with a medical facility nearby, or is this unique to us?
In Tucson, they operate on a hospital campus.
Yeah, it's all on one campus.
I don't think so in Kirkland or.
I don't know if they do
On the
any
East
of their
Coast.
other facilities. They also have Phoenix too. But yeah, Tucson's the one, and a group of us were able to tour that and see there was like what's this, the sidewalk in the sky?
Yeah.
Skywalk? Yeah, Sky Bridge. That linked the two of them.
Well, it's reassuring to me to know that while this is the first operation of its type in Oregon, it's not the first time they've done it, and that they do already have a relationship outside of Oregon with Centene, which is the parent company, of course, of Trillium, who's our one CCO that we have. So once again, this presentation gives me confidence that we're moving forward in the right direction, and that we're taking the right steps to make sure that it's in the right place, which I firmly believe it is in the right place. It was. You remember when we walked the old Bon Marché building?
do.
That was 7 years ago, maybe.
It was my first year on the board.
It
so
was
five.
5 years ago.
It was my first year.
And I remember because Sheffield United beat Arsenal that day. That's a bad joke. But it's been a long time coming with all of the due diligence that's happened between then and now. This is going to be a far better facility than we even possibly could have had at that point in time, the way I look at it. So thank you so much. And Brittany, you've been involved every step of the way. You've been reassuring people. You've been leading the groups, the study groups, and your involvement has been absolutely integral to creating that confidence in the community. Thank you.
Did think of something else. After, I just had one more question thought
Oh, okay.
for a second round.
Vice Chair Buck, you had your hand up?
Yes, quick question. You had mentioned that you thought that these two facilities combined would bring about 300 new jobs to the region. Do you happen to know the split between the two?
It's about 2/3 for the inpatient hospital, about 1/3 for the stabilization center.
Okay, great, great. I guess after all this time, wasn't quite aware that it would bring that much workforce. So I appreciate that.
And we can do a future breakdown roughly of staffing and like credential types, and who that is.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be interesting.
Well, so I thought I'm sure there's a lot of differences, but I guess I'm not really familiar with the one in Deschutes County. Isn't it, I mean, we're kind of modeled the same. You said this will be the first one in Oregon.
The first one of this level. So Deschutes County, I believe, is 4 beds for adults.
Recliners.
4 recliners, yes. For adults only, voluntary only. And that, you know, each community has to evaluate their own needs. I know that when we initially were looking at the Deschutes County model for our stabilization center, and when we met with law enforcement and the hospital, over and over again, they said it's not going to work. The people that we need you to care for are not just the ones who are going to be willing to walk in on their own. We need to have behavioral health resources across the whole spectrum of levels of acuity and severity. And so for us, really, law enforcement and the hospital both were not on board until we adopted the connections model. And at that point, everyone coalesced together. So, you know, I think we are the second highest sending county to the state hospital, second only to Multnomah, and not actually that far behind Multnomah a lot of the time. So the level of need for the population in Lane County is very, very high. And I think that is why it is so important to have a facility of this level stationed here geographically, whereas other parts of the state may not need that same level of care based on the experiences within their geography.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Commissioner Trigger, that's
Great.
right, you got one more.
Thank you, and it's sort of tagging on to what Commissioner Buck asked about the job creation aspect. So I heard you saying breakdown of, you know, credentialing, but of course there's lots of jobs. There's landscaping, there's laundry, there's food preparation, there's, right, it's a sort of a spectrum. But I wonder if at some point in the future, it would also be helpful for a quarterly update to focus on the workforce challenges and those educational institution partners, just so we're starting to get a sense from that economic development job creation side of what else there might be that we could be doing or should be aware of as it supports this project, but also as it supports the healthcare industry in our area in general. And I think about some things like some fairly small, on the statewide opioid settlement board, one of our allocations was relatively small to the scheme of that fund. It was a little under $500,000. And it is to support the Oregon Coalition of Prevention Professionals and the Council for Behavioral Health to train and certify 2 cohorts of 25 certified prevention specialists per year for 2 years across the state. So there's sometimes some relatively small investments that can be made from other sources or from our own that have that kind of multiplier effect from the workforce perspective. So that might be a sort of a theme of one of our quarterly updates. So what could we be doing to support that workforce development and what the challenges are and who else is working on it?
I'll just add real quick, we are hoping to be able to circle back with the First Lady and the Behavioral Health Workforce Talent Council or whatever she was commissioned to do. I don't remember quite what it was called, because I think that was wrapping up in January and that they're hopefully going to share findings. So there's a thought to link back and understand what's happening locally and statewide and what needs to be specific and nuanced to our community's needs versus what we can piggyback on a larger effort. So I think we could pursue that more intentionally and bring that back to you as well. And lastly, just to share also, the Lane Workforce Partnerships did receive a HEC grant that would go toward behavioral health apprenticeships. and they actually wrote in an element around behavioral health, high acuity, and crisis because of this work group that we've had. So that would be included as they're building out this model around behavioral health apprenticeship. So more we could bring for sure, but there's good.
And PEC grant, Higher Education Coordinating
I wasn't gonna
Commission.
attempt that one.
Thanks, Ms. Gray. Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. And Dr. Gray, you brought up the state hospital and the nature of the people who are in residence at the state hospital or staying at the state hospital. You and I were there on January 29th when Dr. Pinels gave the great presentation. Well, kind of detached but good presentation to the LGAC committee. And one thing that Dr. Pinels said is, if we can enhance community services, we will be able to discharge more timely. So this system is not, the facility doesn't just fit into our system as an important cog, it fits into the entire system as an important cog.
Okay. What is the lease, or not lease, it's a little different. What does the Good Neighbor Agreement look like with local businesses there in the stabilization center?
You know, we have not started talking about the specifics of what would be in a good neighbor agreement. We do have, we have templates to work from, of course, with other facilities that we have. I know that with the acquisition of the property, you may all remember Cliff Harold, who is now over at Peace Health doing security, and he's working on an initial security protocol for that site because there are campers on there today. There is activity today that it would be unwanted in terms of a neighboring site. So he is already going to work to make the community and the neighborhood a better place before we have even started any kind of construction. And then as we are thinking about, as we really have how is everything going to be oriented and what are the opening timelines going to be, and as the neighbors have more of an openness to sitting down with us, it's been a little difficult with pending litigation to be sitting down and having open conversations with the neighbors. So there is, once we get to that stage, we can certainly negotiate what the terms of that would look like. But I'll of course defer to legal counsel about when it's right for us to sit down with them and have those conversations.
Well, we don't need to get into that kind of detail. I was just, we're working on some things in Florence, and they keep going back to that Good Neighbor Agreement. So, I mean, it means a lot to the neighbors for them to know that we will be good neighbors, and for us to prove that neighborhood will be in better shape when we're there than before we got there. So I think those kind of relationship building efforts are very, very important at this point. Anything else from the board? Okay, well, thank you very much. We sure
Thank you.
appreciate it. That will end our Health and Human Services, and next we have a Public Works discussion and a matter on some covered bridges. Yeah. In the meantime, Pat's gonna give us updates on the soccer game.
Blades won 3-1 over Oxford United.
Okay, thanks. All right, are we ready?
We are ready.
All right, I'm ready. So today we're going to talk about covered bridges and more specifically preserving and restoring and stabilizing these bridges because, Lane County Parks was allocated 3 of the bridges, 3 of the 4 that are actually offline. So we're going to talk about 2 of those today. And I believe within the state there are like 51 bridges, covered bridges, and 20 out of those are found within the county. And so, again, what we're going to be looking at is the bridges that are no longer part of the county road system, call them offline bridges or off-system bridges. And that'll be Stewart and Curran. And you know, both of those bridges are kind of in similar condition, and they're both located kind of in the same area east of Cottage Grove. I'll talk more about them in a minute. And then I have a board order before the commissioners to see if we can allocate some funding just immediately before these bridges collapse. So, as mentioned earlier, the off-system bridges or offline bridges at one point were part of the county road system, and both of the Curran Bridge and Stewart Bridge were removed from the road system. And, you know, so they've been open to pedestrian traffic. We recently received an inspection report from an engineer that advised us to close the bridges to pedestrian traffic because of safety concerns. So we've removed the approaches for both bridges. And there's been some kind of back and forth whether these bridges actually qualify for the road funds or state transportation funds, and we did determine that they don't.
Current analysis is they don't qualify for road fund because they're not part of the active transportation system.
Yeah.
And that's been the problem this whole time. So I'm not sure when these were transferred. We couldn't find the records of when they came off of the system, but they were at some point put in the Parks Division and without adequate funding for them. So they've fallen into disrepair as Parks. We now have the levy funds, but prior to that, Parks was not doing well and just trying to maintain what it had for Parks, and so these came to a rundown condition, and here we're facing that. There was an effort to try to generate funding through printing of some silver coins, if anybody remembers those, and they got through about, I don't know, 8 to a dozen of those, and then kind of scrapped the program because of the price of silver or something. It just wasn't generating significant revenue. These cost millions of dollars to maintain over time, and some coins aren't going to cut it.
Yeah. So, so these bridges have been designated to the Parks Division. Did not mention Lowell Covered Bridge. That's one of them. Lowell isn't in as worse shape as the other two. We regularly have inspections on the bridges, and so we kind of know what their condition is. And we obviously were very alarmed by the last inspection report. So this is Stewart Covered Bridge. It's again found about 3 miles east of Cottage Grove, and you can see that it's on the National Register of Historic Places. That's wonderful, but it still doesn't qualify for any funding, any federal funding. It's been over 30 years since there has been significant funding allocated for maintaining this bridge. So in, I think, 1995, there was a program through the county, which went defunct in 1997. So did a little research on that. Yeah, as you can see, the top left picture, have removed the approach to the bridge. We put up a gate and some signage to keep people off. So this is the shape that it's in right now. And so Curran, very similar to Stewart, it's in very poor conditions. I think they classed it as imminent failure. So we're talking about having to stabilize these bridges immediately, or structurally they're just not going to last much longer. Again, there was some funding allocated. I believe it's like $48,000 back in '95, and that's the last time that they did some significant work on this bridge. Curran is kind of unique in that it's the only bridge that was painted red on either side, so has that distinction. did mention earlier with Stewart, has a cord failure, and the same thing with Curran. So the cord failure is pretty significant, and because they obviously attach eventually to the trusses. And when you take a look at both of the roofs, you know, they're that truss style, but they have deteriorated over time. So that's what we're looking at is, you know, again, deferred maintenance. And so financial considerations, this has been a tough nut for me to crack, to try to figure out how we would be able to generate enough money to restore these bridges, which we're talking into millions, and then how much we're going to be able to actually, over a long-term period, have for regular maintenance and operation of these bridges. So a couple months ago, we had an engineer take a good look at the bridges and make sure that they were, you know, unsafe for pedestrian access. They recommend that we stabilize them immediately. And so last month, working with the Engineering and Construction Division, they hired Dowell, who they're bridge engineers, to conduct a technical report and provide estimates on what it will take and what it will cost to stabilize the bridges and to restore them. So when you think about stabilizing them structurally, that's temporary, and so that's only going to last a little while. So we need to think more along the lines of what's needed to get them in shape where they'll you know, where they'll be in condition where we can maintain them. I think it goes without saying that covered bridges are very important to the county. It's part of our logo. It's on our webpage. It's on Travel Lane County's webpage. It's part of our character, and so I really want you guys to think about, you know, what is our historic legacy going to be? You know, we have a chance right now to save 2 bridges, and yet we don't know how much it's going to cost yet. The report is still happening right now as I speak. I think we'll know a little bit later this month exactly what it's going to cost to stabilize and restore the bridges. But right now we're just asking for stabilization, and didn't go into it, but I think I should. Transient lodging tax, as you all know, has been allocated to the county, and I believe it's like 10%, and 2% of that are reserves. And reading a lane code, it says that the funds are supposed to be allocated for tourism infrastructure. So I would think that it would qualify for that. And so the board order before you is, it says up to $500,000. You know, we know it's going to be more than $500,000. It's, you know, we're looking at $1 million plus easy to stabilize these bridges. But, you know, we need the seed funding and just need it as quickly as possible. So I'm here to just have a frank discussion about the bridges, and so is Dan. And then we have Steve Lawn, he's from City of Cottage Grove, the chamber. And I think there's a few things that you want to say as well.
Sure.
Go.
Please come up to the table if you don't mind, so the mics pick it up. Yeah.
Maybe right here.
This way.
Yeah. You can just
Okay, wherever you're comfortable.
Yeah, my name is Stephen Lawn, and I'm a resident of Cottage Grove. Been there for 37 years, and for 9 years I've been on the Chamber's tourism committee. And covered bridges are a real important part. You know, Cottage Grove is known as the covered bridge capital of Oregon because we have the largest concentration of covered bridges in that general area. Lane County also has bridges throughout the county and in probably all the districts here. So we take these bridges serious. I've been working with Brett for maybe 2 years now, trying to find we first started working, we started conversations for Baker Bay and the work that was being done on the levee, and really appreciate that and the improvements that have gone on there. But then we've talked a little bit about the covered bridges and their conditions and how we can maintain them. I think when the conversation first started, we didn't really have a good idea of what the reports have recently said, how bad they were. Stewart was kind of more obvious, and that had been cut off from access.
Some time
But,
ago.
but Curran was, we didn't know. It looked, it has some roof issues, but we didn't have it from untrained eye. It was a great option. We've done videos, we have brochures. When, at our visitor center, when people report what they came to Cottage Grove for, it's covered bridges is far and away the top item listed. I did a little research. I reached out to Travel Lane County, and they feature a lot of covered bridge information for Cottage Grove and also for the county. And I just wanted to share something from the Senior Director of Tourism Marketing at Travel Lane County. So the following information on covered bridge information on the website. We have over 100 blogs on our website that mention covered bridges and over 60 web pages. They're a centerpiece of Cottage Grove's destination pages, and covered bridges have a role in content around romance, road trips, guided tours, historic landmarks, parks, scenic drives, holiday lights, cycling, and more. Even better, covered bridges are a year-round, all-weather attractions! Exclamation point on his part. So, I've been working with Brett on how do we put pieces together to fund pretty much maintenance. Now it's a totally different situation to stabilize these bridges and how we can work to bring them back and save them. And I think it's gonna be real creative on finding financing. When you look at lottery funds, there's really no place for new people to come looking for lottery funds. State parks, though, is one of those divisions. So is there a relationship, maybe state parks and the county parks? Good. I mean, I don't have the answers, but I do know that this isn't the first time that Cottage Grove has had a covered bridge in dire condition. Basically, one strong windstorm away from crashing into the Coast Fork, they cut off access to the Chambers Bridge for pedestrians, and basically it was probably as dire shape as, maybe more dire than Curran or Stewart. Well, the city and the community got together, stabilized that, and basically is now one of our top points of interest for tourism. It's the only covered rail bridge west of the Mississippi that remains. And if you've had a chance to go to the Chambers covered bridge and see what the current condition is, it's an awesome thing. I've talked, trying to get an idea from the past city manager on how he cobbled all the funds available. It's going to be a little different economic situation today, but it can be done. And so I get a lot of calls from the residents. I've met with a lot of residents that are out there specifically around Curran Bridge, but also in the neighborhood of Stewart, and other people. We've been reaching out to the National Preservation of Covered Bridges Association. A lot of people are concerned and want to keep these. I don't have the answer on how to make it happen, but I think they would need to be stabilized. When I look at estimates for what it would take to take them down, that's not cheap either. But these are not just heritage sites. They are strong tourism sites, especially for the Cottage Grove area. Thank you.
I'll just make a few comments and wrap up. If that's
Yeah,
okay.
please, absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to underscore, these are beloved structures and a real tourism draw. But I also want to underscore how dire the situation is. So this report, I think it was potential imminent failure. I mean, these are unsafe structures at this point, and current, has a visible lien. So we have to move quickly. Or sorry, Stuart. Thank you. We need to act quickly on this. And we just don't know the cost, but the $500,000 will help. We'll probably have to look at other potential reserves or funds in parks to once we have the estimate from the engineering firm of what it's going to take to stabilize. But that's just the beginning. We're talking about several $1 million to bring these up to a satisfactory condition. And then there's the ongoing maintenance of, I think we heard from road maintenance of about $55,000 a year to maintain these. So. While we love them, they're kind of money pits too. This wasn't in the parks levy because at that time we were not realizing how dire these were, and we were following the recommendations of the Parks Funding Task Force, and there was so much backlog maintenance within our parks. But maybe for the next levy, that this could be a piece for consideration unless you have other ideas for long-term funding. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. This is a board order, but do we have any questions first? Commissioner Farr?
Thank you. Boy, I love the covered bridges. I really did. Used to drive across the Lowell covered bridge when it was the main route for us to go to Fall Creek, back when it was a driving bridge. That was some time ago. That said, the city of Oregon has about 50 covered bridges. We have about 20, so down from 400 in its heyday. So the number of covered bridges in Oregon is down 75%. Of all the covered bridges in Oregon, we have 40% of them here in Lane County. These two bridges represent 10% of our inventory in Lane County. So the state now has only 25% of what it once had. We have 20% of the state's inventory, and this represents 10%. I love the covered bridges. I can't support this, I'm afraid. I think that the fact that it's $500,000 right now from our reserves, precious reserves, that we really do have other things that may be looming regarding the TRT reserves. TLT it's called now. And then the fact that it's a money pit, using your terms, it would cost a lot of money to maintain them on a regular basis. And the $500,000 is just a drop in terms of what it would take to fix the lien on the Curran Bridge, or Stewart Bridge, whichever, excuse me. I do get the two mixed up. So, I love it. I really love the concept of it, but I can't support putting the reserves into it at this point in time, especially knowing that it doesn't do the job. It just is a step along the way. So, I'm only one of 5.
Vice Chair Buck?
Well, as a commissioner for the area in which these bridges are, thank you very much for coming out and speaking with us. I am a huge supporter of the bridges, and although it takes money to maintain them, there is an economic development piece to these bridges from the tourism that it brings to rural communities. Rural communities continue to have issues with maintaining tourism for their economic base, given that they don't have the same opportunities as metro centers for attracting big businesses to help maintain them. So they really heavily rely on tourism. Knowing that there's only 3 of these bridges that are covered by the parks, and knowing that the park levy, should we go to renew it, is a potential where we could recoup some funding for this work, it seems like this is an easy path to yes. It would be quite devastating, I think, for the South Lane region to know that our board would not support maintaining the bridges, knowing that, as was stated, these are are a heritage of Lane County. These are an identifying building structure that you instantly think of when you think of rural Lane County. It's incredibly important to the morale of our rural communities to maintain these bridges. And that doesn't include the economic development portion that they bring in. You know, we want to continue to support these communities, and we've got to think about these kinds of structures and how they're really part of the fabric of the people that live there. So I really encourage my colleagues to consider saying yes to this, knowing that there are possibilities in the future with the Parks Levy to potentially finish whatever we need to do to fund this. It has a direct tie to tourism in our community and the funding that's being asked.
Commissioner Trigger.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I was reading through the packet where is it OSU says covered bridges, while not a quote final destination tourist attraction, are a component that contributes to Oregon's total tourist package. They also found that visits to historic and cultural sites are the second most important reason for vacation trips to Oregon. And this is an up to $500,000. This isn't an absolute expense. And I'm particularly struck by, I think Director Hurley mentioned, even if it was determined that decommissioning the bridges was required, we don't know what that, we need some kind of study to help us. So whatever is next for these bridges, we have to spend some money to determine what that path is and what it's going to cost to know how to proceed. Including, and particularly I was going to raise, and I'm glad Commissioner Buck did, that we may have an opportunity with our next Parks Levy to identify these as a source of investment. It also feels to me like this is money we can spend to demonstrate to broader concerns like the state, tourism industries statewide, to other partners, to private interests, that we're doing everything we can to preserve these heritage sites. And hopefully it buys us the time to get some other partners on board to help invest in, hopefully, in their preservation. You mentioned they came off the, they're not part of the roads fund. It's too bad we don't consider pedestrian infrastructure part of transportation. That's a different conversation. But it wouldn't really help us to have them be able to take road funds because we don't have enough of those either for roads. So lots of work to do, but we're going to miss the opportunity to do the work, whatever direction that is, if we don't at least take this next step. So as hard as it is, as many pressures as there are on limited funds, this feels like a really important, too soon to close the door on. And in fact, we don't even have enough information to make that determination, right? Am I right that this study would help us understand what the cost would be, both to decommission them entirely, as well as to stabilize them, as well as to eventually rehabilitate them?
You're correct. I didn't mention decommissioning, but yeah, I mean, we didn't need this money like now, if we're going to preserve these two bridges. And then we need to figure out how we would find enough funding to get them in a place where they would be stable enough until the levy funding hopefully kicks in 2028. So that's just what we're looking at right now. And, obviously I don't want to steal your thunder, but I just wanted to mention it. We need this funding or these bridges are going to be gone.
To that also, with the attorney in the room, they're a liability at this point. We also sort of have an obligation to do everything we can to see what do we need to do to make them structurally sound. So, I know we put a gate up, but people do climb over fences. So anything from the legal side that we might want to consider would be good to
Commissioner,
know.
I think you said it perfectly. If we have an attractive nuisance and people do things with them, my concerns would be exactly as you just described. But you were also correct. ORS Chapter 368 would not allow you to use road funds on these.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Lovell.
Thank you, Chair. We used to be had 20 of those bridges left in our county, and I'm just curious, Brett, how many of those bridges are in less need and still drawing tourist dollars to the area besides these two?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that these three bridges are the ones that, have the most deferred maintenance, the lion's share, for sure. And, I don't know why they weren't thinking ahead, but it is what it is right now, so we need to make a decision. Yeah, I mean, obviously at one time, I think, Commissioner said 400 in the state, and now it's down to like 50 or 51. And Lane County has 20 of them, so this is part of our legacy. And, this is a decision today to let us know how much you guys value the.
Commissioner, if I can answer that.
Please.
The others that are in the road fund are in good condition. We have a regular program of maintenance, and it's expensive. There's fumigation, regular painting, replacement of components, so, a lot of roof work, but we've been on top of that maintenance through the years.
Well, I appreciate you keeping up on that, and I'm glad that those are in a system of being paid and cared for, so they still, in a sense, will attract tourism. I mean, to Commissioner Farr's point, when we start dealing the percentages, how many of these bridges are still attracting tourist dollars that we could maybe fund into those bridges of less maintenance need than these here? And then to the point of this being a liability, that's also a question too. I mean, at some point, every structure gets to the point where it may or may not be worth saving. I do agree with Commissioner Buck's point about it having a very good need and a draw to the rural communities. I think we need to keep an eye on that. But also, I know that Cottage Grove's bridge in downtown Cottage Grove, isn't that independently by a society maintained, or is that, how is that one maintained?
There's a Sentinel Bridge, which is actually, was created from two Lane County covered bridges that were taken offline. But then there's the Chambers Bridge, that's city. So those are both taken care of by the city and maintained. The restoration work was done by there. We have a tour of covered bridges, there's 6 of them on there. 2 of those are online. The Mosby one, actually, this year, looks like a new paint job, and it's a kind of a one-way at a time bridge, covered bridge. It's in great shape, 1920s covered bridge, because of it is on the road and still stays there. It's getting the maintenance and the conditioning that it needs. I don't know what the cost of that is. And then there's the other one that's, you can drive through it and then drive back through it out past Dorena, the Dorena Bridge, which qualifies for the road funds. So the other is those 2 that don't qualify, and as he mentioned, also the Lowell Bridge are part of the Parks Division that don't have the funding to maintain them. I know that there was an effort, I think by Boy Scout, to help preserve Lowell. Even now it's off the road. I know that the community did a lot of work out at, when you go up in the Mackenzie River area, Good Pasture, you'll see a plaque there. This bridge was ready to be torn down and saved by the community. We're willing to put the community together. We weren't aware the timeline was as quick as it was until the reports came out. But we've been working with the parks, with the Parks Advisory Committee. We know this is an issue. We need to find long-term funding. Had conversations with Brett about legislative working, at the state level and maybe finding funds there. But now it's like the quickening of this. We need to do something. And so, at Curran Bridge, we also have the Stand By Me historic film thing there that discusses, the filming of some scenes of Stand By Me in Cottage Grove. Cottage Grove right now, we are working on promoting the films that have happened in Cottage Grove. There's maybe some more films to be produced in Cottage Grove. We have the 100-year anniversary of the General this year, Buster Keaton, and the great silent film, The General. So the film, Cover Bridge, we're doing everything we can to make Cottage Grove the tourist gem. We just finished a Main Street revitalization in the historic downtown. Got a new business opening up, I think next Friday. So this is an important part of being a resilient rural community. We don't have all of the access to some of the big stuff here in the metro area, but I think we punch above our weight sometimes and want to continue that. Covered bridges are important, and I'd like to get our groups together and see what we can do. And I know it's a big thing, a big ask for you guys to consider too. You know, when I looked at something I followed was, so lane code 4.005.175H, which is the money from the extra 2% tax that was basically kind of put together for, to try to keep the M's here. I don't know what those funds are for, but those are specifically for, you know, special purpose tourism related facilities. And I think that construction maintenance, those bridges could fall into that category. That's maybe your question for you, not for me, but I'm just here to make my pitch to save these bridges.
I'd like to continue I mean, we got a little bit off track a little bit, if I may, so.
Please do.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The question I was getting to point is that this is if we're looking at this as an investment decision for the county, which is $500,000, we're looking at, like I said, we have 20 bridges. We have a few of them that are maintained by the park or by the road division. We have a few of them that are community maintained. We have enough inventory in my mind to still draw the amount of tourism here, and I'm wondering if the investment in these two bridges is worthwhile. I have some concerns that I shared with Commissioner Farr, and so the two questions I still have remaining are basically three: is what's our TLT reserve balance? If you're talking about this one, is he talking about the same one that the M's balance is, that we think we have about $8 million in? Okay, so we have about $8 million in that. I want the public to know that. Pardon me? $9 million. $9 million, okay, we have $9 million in that fund. So we've also had an ask for that for the indoor sports arena, so, and then the Lane Event Center is master plans brewing, so we have all this in front of us as well. But then the other thing is how much would just an assessment study be of these buildings? I mean, I'm not inclined, I think I'm partnering with Commissioner Farr, which I didn't think you'd be on that page, Commissioner, honestly, is that $500 sounds a little much to just to wait and see. I think 100,000 or 150,000 would be enough to have someone go out there and say, yeah, these are worth saving, or yeah, these aren't worth saving, and then move in the direction we need to move in. Because as I'm making the point is I think we have enough covered bridges to still draw the tourism dollars that we desire. These two are the outliers. I got forgotten. They've been fenced off for a while. People haven't been seeing them on a regular basis other than, ad hoc or going there just to, they're not main draws, is my point. And so to me, as a person who makes policy and investment decisions for the county, I want to invest in what's continually drawing people to the area and what's already got a good track record of being maintained. This is like our road system where we're looking at, a D-shaped road that we have to totally rebuild and reshape, rather than just keeping our B+ and our A- roads in good repair so that they continue to operate. That's how I'm comparing that in my mind. Help me out here.
I would say Curran is definitely one of the top bridges, and until it was taken off just very recently. Because on the tour, you do Mosby, you cross the Mosby Bridge, go down that road, there's Curran. Those two are like part of a loop that's the easy one to do with city without having to go all the way out to Dorena. So I would say that that's an important component. Stewart has been in sad shape for a while, and it's been offline to anyone having access to it for a while.
Since 2019.
Yeah.
So you've had to choose. What I'm hearing is you'd say you'd rather say Curran than Stewart. Is that what I'm hearing?
I hate to choose my favorite child.
Well, at some point, the investment only goes so far, Steve. That's what I'm saying. And I do believe, as what we've been talking about here, there's enough investment working to bring the tourism dollars that we're saying. And I don't want this issue to become an emotional issue, because emotional real estate deals always go sideways.
I understand that. I mean, if I had to choose between the two, Curran is the one.
Okay, so I want to hear.
Easily seen, everyone going out Route River Road. Bam, it's right there.
Right, and I would be.
Red-sided, it's
I would be on record saying I wouldn't support the 500,000, but I'd support it. Look at Kern Bridge, it's just an assessment, to see what to do with it. And I'd maybe go 150 on that.
And that's already underway, and we were trying to
Then maybe
remember what
we
the
don't need
cost of the assessment was. I think it was about 30,000. But, so these funds are really for the stabilization part.
So they're more, so these funds are more than just getting an idea of what we could do. This is actually stabilizing the fund.
We don't have an estimate on the stabilization, but we anticipate it's gonna be more than 500,000. That this would get us a good chunk of the way there. We're waiting for that assessment to be complete.
The assessment's happening right now, that's what's happening, and so that'll come back, and our estimate is we're gonna need north of $500,000 to repair them, so this was the start of having the conversation.
And what happens if we don't approve this? I mean, do the bridges just fall down, or do we take them down, or what happens at that point?
I think we would need to do another evaluation of what the cost would be and how we can safely dismantle them, assuming they don't fall on their own. And then there's, the concern around liability. I mean, we have seen evidence of people being under the bridge, even though we put signs in place and fencing. So there's that concern.
Mr. True?
I just have a clarifying question, because Commissioner Loval said we have an ask for some money that I don't believe there is formally an ask on the table. This is funds that are still available and within our control and at our discretion to spend within the parameters of what is allowable for those funds. I just wanted to clarify that, make sure I'm not.
Related to the 2
I know it's been
points of
discussed.
TLT?
Yeah, I know it's been.
Yeah, the board is not, you approved 2 points of TLT, we continue to collect that, that's what is at the $9 million reserve. It's unallocated, so those funds are sitting there. We've talked about a portion, if the legislature allows for the use of TLT funds for general purposes to help support public safety. But there's been, that is why we made this recommendation of it's about 5% of that total reserve for this purpose. The idea was Traveling County, if you look on Traveling County's website, they actually have a page dedicated to all of our covered bridges, and they have every single one identified in the history and the location. They have a map that shows how you can go to each one and do these different tours. So it's pretty clear that it's a tourism destination that our marketing agency is promoting. And so our feeling was, well, this is a need. We either have to make a decision if we're going to invest in these facilities or if we're going to decommission them. The cost to decommission them will be greater, but it will be a one-time cost. The cost of investment is going to be something we have to decide if we're going to continue to make that investment. So.
Thank you. And the money that we just approved, was that just last week or 2 weeks ago, at the request of Travel Lane, was to study feasibility for a project, but we have not been asked to spend money on that project. We've been asked to spend money on a study. I just want to make that really clear.
The board approved spending up to $250,000 on a study related to the model for owning and operating a indoor sports complex. But there's been no commitment to a site or who would operate it, who would own it, any of those things.
Or where the funds would come from.
Or the investment in it, right.
Exactly.
But,
This is my point.
There's not been a formal ask, there's not been a formal commitment.
Sure, just one comment. So this is just for the allocation of funds. We would need to come back to you for a construction contract approval, and at that point, we would know the full amount and how we're piecing together the rest of the funds.
And again, this isn't up to.
This isn't up to, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add one thing, I want to make sure that I also put my support for Traveling County's sports facilities. I'm not asking, it's hard to go with our partners to say, I don't want to compete against you, but I think it's important. And at that time, we would fully, when they select and do the sports facility, back that 100% do. That helps.
Who was your letter from there, Steve?
Pardon me?
Who was your letter from?
Steve Hoshaw, Senior Director. I asked him for some, he gives us a lot of data on, I didn't bring that, as like page visits, retention time, which pages, like the Cover Bridge tour in the last 12 months. So he gave me a bunch of data, and then that was, I just kind of took the end of his email to present to you.
Did anybody talk to Samara at all about this?
We may have mentioned it during our conversation you know, when we were talking about the 250,000 for the study. But not, you mean to ask if their support?
Yeah, just see what their thoughts were.
Yeah, I would presume that they would support this. I don't know. But I would presume they would because they promote it as part of the destination.
I don't know if they
Okay.
know the total price yet of the ask. I mean, we've had conversations about the support on here, but I don't think there's been conversations of, because we don't know what the cost would be to, I mean, ideally, I'd like to see both preserved, maintained. And that's gonna be a big number, but I don't know what it is. And the sports facility is gonna be a big number. I don't know what it is. But both of those are beneficial to tourism in Lake County. So I'm for them.
Commissioner Farr.
I have to make a choice.
Commissioner Farr.
Thanks. And I'm, you know, my point on this isn't to sway anybody's view on it, and I understand, I mean, they are wonderful bridges, there's no question about it. It is 10% of our inventory. We would still have 90% of our covered bridges in Lane County still here. There would still be 96% of Oregon's covered bridges still here, which gives plenty of opportunity for tourism if that's a single cost or to maintain them. What I'm worried about is $500K right now, but and somebody said that they said that 500,000 wouldn't be enough just a moment ago. Was it? I'm not sure who said that, but somebody said that.
We're not sure. We're not sure. We
So
could
it's
go,
up to, but maybe not even.
yeah, I mean, we can come back to the board once
Yeah.
we find out exactly how much it
But
is.
the actual restoration and ongoing maintenance is millions of dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
all.
it's basically stabilize these bridges until we would potentially have the local option levy, 5-year local option levy renewal passed. And that would be November of 2028 before the funding would be available for us to invest.
And I supported the last levy, obviously, but once again, this 500,000 just leads to millions and millions more dollars of spending on the same two covered bridges, and I just rest on what I've said. And I'm not trying to change anybody's mind that they're not beautiful bridges. I mean, they are falling down. One of them is leaning, and if you just watch it for the next few years, it'll lean itself into the creek, you know. But that's all. I'm not with it. If the order is made, I will vote against it.
Okay.
You know, weigh in there, Chair, or second round? I'm kind of waiting for you there. Going again.
There's been some pretty robust conversation. Go ahead. If you have more, absolutely.
Well,
Talk it out.
I just wonder too, you know, again, Commissioner Farr's point, it's 20, it's, you know, 2 bridges out of 20, it's 10%. I mean, I'd like to know what the numbers are, honestly, because it seems to me like we're spending, I mean, there's an old saying that says you can spend 90% of your time making things 10% better, and this is kind of fits in that lane, you know. I mean, we already have a good thing going. Travel Lane County has a full page. We have 20 bridges. If these two go offline and disappear, how much of an effect is it really going to have as dollars and cents go compared to not funding this $500,000 and saving it for some other kind of thing? And when I say ask, I'm not saying we've had formal asks. I'm saying people are saying, hey, there's money sitting there. Let's think about blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of chatter going on, and maybe that's the word I should have used. There's not any formal ask except for the feasibility study that we've had. But as far as the county goes, going forward, we're going to have to make some very tough decisions, but every decision we do make has to make money. It has to verifiably make money. We can't just have something that says, well, hey, here's $500,000, and we don't know where it's going to go. I can't operate that way. I can't use tax dollars that way with that kind of pie in the sky, unfirm kind of direction where we're going. I'll need to know, are these worth saving? If they're not, take them offline and use what we have and keep investing in those to make the tourism attraction applicable for our economy. But I think if we were to dump $2 million or $3 million in these bridges for 2 out of 20, I don't think that's a good investment, honestly.
Okay. Ready for a motion?
I am.
Go ahead. Mr. Buck.
I would like to move approval of Order 26-02-03-08 in the matter of allocating up to $500,000 in transient lodging tax reserves to the Public Works Parks Division for the stabilization of Curran and Stewart covered bridges. And I'd like to speak to that if there's a second.
Second.
We have a motion made by Vice Chair Buck and seconded by Commissioner Trigger to approve Order 26020308 in the matter of allocating up to $500,000 in transient lodging tax reserves to the Public Works Parks Division for the stabilization of Kern and Stewart Covered Bridges. Any more discussion? Vice Chair Buck.
Thank you. We're talking about part of the identity of the South Lane District, and that's no small matter. I understand that some of my colleagues are looking at dollars and cents. This is an investment in the economic base of our rural communities. It is an investment in the identity of our rural communities and their legitimate place in the county's economic engine. We have a community that's interested in working with us to find solutions. This is a first step forward in order to stabilize these two bridges and working with the community in order to really have a commitment about how we are going to financially make this feasible for the future. I think it's worth the investment and strongly urge my colleagues to consider voting yes on this.
Okay, Commissioner Lovell.
I'd like to point out a contrary opinion to one that Commissioner Buck just put out. The community at large in the Southern Lane County has already found a way to keep the most important bridges online and keep tourism alive at their own volition. And the identity of the county, if these two bridges go offline, will not change. We'll still have 18 bridges in our county to identify with.
Okay, any other discussion? Well, I'm just going to say that I will be supporting this because in our rural communities, things like covered bridges mean a lot to the community members that are there. And I have vowed to stand up for our rural communities to the best that I can. And I think this is something that will go a long ways in those communities, knowing that Lane County does support them and will continue to support them. So I will call for a vote now. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
No.
Okay, vote carries 3-2 with Commissioner Farr and Commissioner Lovell opposed. Okay.
Thank you.
Make good decisions.
Buckle your seatbelt.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Afternoon, stabilization's been the theme, right?
Right.
Now let's fix the
Okay, on to
point
Commissioner
bridge.
business. Do we have any announcements?
Did we do,
Commissioner announcements?
are we
Going
doing
once,
this? No, I'll do it under remonstrance.
going twice. On to Commissioner comments and remonstrance. Go ahead, Commissioner Trigger.
Thank you. I know we're coming up against time, so I'll be brief. I do want to just acknowledge and wish everyone a happy and celebratory Black History Month. I also know that our administrator mentioned the press conference that the governor called and that we were able to provide a space for. And I want to just thank not only the chair for representing Lane County as the and the other electeds that the administrator mentioned, but it was also a really important showing of community solidarity. There was a representative from Oregon State Police. This was me scanning the crowd looking on YouTube after the fact. We had representatives from our local NAACP chapter, from the Asian Pacific Council, Asian American Pacific Council of Oregon there, and of course the Reverend Dan Bryant spoke. It was a real important show of solidarity from the community, from elected leaders, from law enforcement, to speak out against what's happening and to ask the community to keep the safety of everyone in mind as they are exercising their right to free speech. And I just wanted to offer a quote from Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, who said, "Speaking out against the abuse of power is the most patriotic thing we can do." So I was just really pleased that we were able to host the governor's event here and that we had such a strong showing from across so many different aspects of the community united, and thank the chair again for representing us there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other comments, remonstrance? I will just say we had a good debrief or briefing at that meeting before the press release, and really like to thank some of the or appreciate Senator Manning. He said some wise words while we were in here, and it's always great to listen to someone that's been around it for so long. But you know, he kept saying, and he said it in the press release, and Moker Heisky and I were talking about, just simple, but you know, it's the things of don't take the bait. I mean, there are agitators out there, and there's peaceful protesters out there, and there's a difference. So your peaceful protest loses its meaning when windows start getting broke and things like that. And so it was good to hear. It was good to hear everybody reiterate those things. That keep your peaceful protests peaceful, and it means a lot more. We had people coming into the community for a fairly large event that night, and they were all staying at the Graduate. So with all the interaction that was happening, that was not a great look for Eugene, and those people now are going to think of Eugene like that, and that's not what Eugene is. So, okay, done with that. Reports, future board site. Commissioner Farr.
One more thing, and I'm going to put
Absolutely.
you on the spot. I understand you were at a fundraiser over the weekend.
I was.
Could you just give us a sentence on that?
I have art.
Yeah, there's some pictures online. I was asked to participate in the Shall We Dance celebrity dancers for Angel Hair Foundation, which is an amazing foundation that puts hair systems on kids that have lost their hair from cancer treatment. And
Big deal, huge deal.
Yeah. It was a very, very emotional night, and we ended up, probably no small part because of my 4 dances, but we ended up raising $150,000. It was just absolutely amazing.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yep, and we had 4 recipients there, and we gave them the full glamour. They got nails, pedicures, manicures, and got their hair systems done, and limo rides with red carpet. It was just, it was an amazing event. I was felt very lucky and blessed to be a part of it. So, yes. Okay, and thank you. Committee reports, future board assignment requests, Ethan? Commissioner Lovell, yes.
Thank you, Chair. This may be muddled, so it's open for discussion. I had a conversation with Mr. Moker Heisky yesterday about the current Navigational Center contract, which I think is on my horizon and everybody else's horizon. That's going to have to be decided again June 1st. And after talking to some of the local operators, as some of you also during the work session we had last time would rather see happen on our navigational center be awarded to a local a contractor kind of thing. Myself and Gabe Pahovitz from Everyone's Village have been chatting, and I would like to throw this out. It may have already been covered in Commissioner Trieger's and I's ask last time, so I want to just kind of run it through the board, as I think we need to put on our radar fairly soon a work session with the board and the Health and Human Services staff for a change in model of operation with the NAB Center to see if putting out an RFP for a local provider might bring us some more refined results and address better some of the issues that are surrounding the facility. So I think we may have already asked that, but I think, as this comes upon us fairly soon, this is already February, to decide on what to do with that come June, or, having a lot of other pressure from the community and those folks that have been keeping a close eye on what happens outside the periphery of that center. I think we owe it to at least run this up the flagpole a little bit and see if we can make an asset that we own as a county work better for the community.
I will absolutely give that a head nod. I know the Navigation Center is doing some great things, but I think part of the rub and conflict out there is that it's an out-of-state business running that navigation center, and it's a little hard to get a hold of. They have an email system that works, and you can reach out to them, and they'll get back to you. But it's hard for them to talk to somebody. A lot of our, especially Gabe, I mean, they're in the community every day. They're out there, and I think it's certainly worth looking at. Absolutely.
Could you detail that, ask again?
It's for us to have another work session with local providers for an RFP to change the model of operation for the NAV Center. Some of the things that Commissioner Seneca brings out that Gabe's been doing in the community, there is sites that have been made available in Cottage Grove and Veneta for an extension of the Every One Village sort of model, which is still a low barrier model, but it's not a low barrier model without guidelines when you come in as a low barrier. So, the statewide statistics seem to be leaning toward a different approach to just a no barrier system. That a low barrier system with a little bit of guideline at first brings people to a place where they're healing sooner and more. The numbers are bearing out that as well. So what my ask is to have a work session with board and the Health and Human Services staff for a change in model of operation with the NAV Center, to see if putting out an RFP, a request for proposal for a local provider, might bring us some more refined results that we're all after and address some of the issues surrounding the facility.
Not at this time.
I can assure you that I am still hearing complaints from neighbors every couple of days. It's not every day like it was, but it's every couple of days, if not weekly. And I met with the superintendent out there, and she's brand new, and she has a lot of concerns. And I think bringing some of maybe the parent group that I met with also, and the superintendent, and to talk about some of their concerns might be helpful. I mean, they're the neighbors, and they're still not overly impressed with how ESS is handling some of those situations. So I don't know. It's something as something that's in my district, I would sure like to take a look at some point in the near future.
So, if I may, my question is for the administrator. My understanding is we've already given the assignment, and there's already in the works to have another presentation from H&HS more broadly about service providers in the community, the different models that they deliver, and the different populations that they serve. So that's already happening. As far as an RFP, that's a process that happens automatically because this is a contract that has a finite date to it, and as that date approaches, we reopen for providers. It's an open RFP already to deliver the services, so that these things are already happening. Unless I'm not understanding what you're asking for.
No, that's what I'm asking, is a discussion on
There's no need to ask
that,
for them
if
because
it's already
it's
happening.
happening. Because we've already, on the panel of providers, we've already given that direction, and that's in the works. And on the RFP, that happens anyway, that we put RFPs out to fulfill all the contract services that we do. The thing I think you're referring to is there was discussion about whether we wanted to have some kind of local vendor preference in our procurement. That's a whole different, broader umbrella conversation than per a program or per a particular contract or service.
For clarity, is the Navigation Center ESS that goes through the RFP, or do we just renew the contract?
My understanding is that there is a RFP process that we would go through prior to, I think, the end of this fiscal year, I believe, but I can verify that.
Okay. That would be maybe step one, verifying that. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just
Vice Chair Buck.
add that we do have an assignment regarding the local preference procurement. That hasn't come back to us yet, although I'm interested in seeing that too. I'm not sure where that is in the works, but perhaps the administrator can look into that and let us know.
Yeah, because I wasn't aware that it was an RFP every time. I saw it was a contract renewal.
You asked the same thing, Commissioner, about whether or not we're doing an RFP process?
The local preference.
Oh, if there's a local preference
Yeah,
potential is part of that?
Yeah, well, it's not part of that. It was a separate assignment to talk about it in general.
Right, yeah.
For all things in Lane County. I had first
right.
initially
Were
talked
they-
about it for H&HS, and we globalized it to the whole of our services.
Right, yeah.
I'd be interested in a discussion of the navigation center, of its operation and how it's working. I was at their meeting on January 13th. And had a good discussion with the people who were involved right there and then. I think, it's a difficult job that they're performing. And I think that it's easy to see one facet through one lens of what is happening there. And I think more of a presentation in depth, I'd be interested in that. But I am not interested in actively looking for a replacement for Equitable Solutions at this point in time.
Do we have, they also are our contract service provider at Brooklyn Avenue, right?
Yes.
ESS? And things are going, we don't hear anything from them.
It's quieter over there.
Yeah, just checking.
Well, like I said, when I introduced the item, I didn't know if we were still in flux. It was just kind of like, I wanted to make sure maybe we were still on task with getting the requests that have been voiced continued down the pike, because the renewal for whatever's coming up or whatever's going to happen will be fast upon us.
Okay, well, it doesn't sound like there's any assignments to really review. Other business? Anybody? Okay, today and tomorrow, the Board of County Commissioners will meet in 2 executive sessions. The first session will take place this afternoon following the conclusion of this public meeting and is to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. It is held pursuant to ORS 192-660-2F, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Second session will take place at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, February 4th, and is to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed, and is held pursuant to ORS 192-660-2H. Representatives of the news and media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive sessions. All other members of the audience are precluded from attending. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive sessions except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. Members of the news media are not allowed to tape, video record, or otherwise record an executive session. Verbatim notes are prohibited. No decision may be made in executive session. We will return to public session on Tuesday, February 10th at 9 a.m. Oh, let's come back at 3:15. Take some, everybody want a break? 3:15.